Rabbi Stern, a Reform rabbi here at Temple Beth Shalom in Topeka, Kansas, right in the heart of the country. And I'm happy to be joining you today to review a video on YouTube called Why So Many Jews Are Rich. I'm not particularly rich, but some Jews are. And we're going to see whether this video is presenting some of the good things about Jewish culture or whether it delves into stereotypes and verges on, something maybe worse than that. So without further ado, let's get started and see what Finance Explained thinks. It should be noted also that I'm not going to look exactly like, you'll see some things, you'll see the kippah that'll be similar, but obviously some of the Jews they're going to show, there's different levels of observance in the Jewish community. So, some of the Haredi or Orthodox Jews they're going to show in the video who are very identifiable by a particular kind of dress don't look like what Jews in some parts of Orthodoxy or the conservative or reform movements here in the United States are going to look like. We're a very diverse people. Okay, let's get started.
The Jews have a reputation for being very wealthy, and although this is sometimes regarded as a stereotype, some of the wealthiest people in the world are indeed Jewish. For example, Sergey Brin, founder of Google, is worth $114 billion, while founder of Oracle, Larry Ellison, is worth $116 billion.
It's not anti-Semitic or just a stereotype to say that some Jews are very wealthy. You'll note that the Jews they're talking about are Jews who have gone out and done something in the world. They've created something. They've founded a major company that went on to become worth many billions of dollars, things like that. Very few Jews are going to have inherited wealth. We'll see how that is presented in the video.
Other Jewish billionaires include Michael Bloomberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Steven Schwartzman, Lynn Blackfenek, and Miriam Adelson. While not all Jews may be billionaires, many of them may be considered as a little more than financially stable. How did this happen? Here are my top 10 reasons that Jews are richer than most.
None of the
Number
Jews
10,
they're showing on screen are
Jews.
None of the Jews they're showing on screen over the last few seconds live any kind of lifestyle like what those rich Jews they are talking about live. Just wanted to put that out there. It's very different.
Are not allowed to own land. Nowadays, investing in real estate has become a leading trend in wealth acquisition. However, back in the day, this was not a possibility for Jewish people in Europe. They were excluded from many guilds, confined to ghettos, and restricted from owning land. As a result, in the late Middle Ages, many Jews became successful in the fields of trade, banking, and money lending. The dominant Christian society was forbidden from charging interest to other Christians. However, this was fine under Jewish law. So while Christians had more opportunities open to them, for example, capital investment and land and sea trade, they needed loans to fulfill these desires. The Jews catered to their financial needs and were able to dominate this field. They had such a reputation for money lending that Shakespeare even made reference to this in The Merchant of Venice. In this play, a Jewish moneylender named Shylock extends a loan to a Christian named Antonio, but this loan is guaranteed by a pound of flesh. When he cannot repay the loan, he's taken to court, where Shylock insists on receiving his pound of flesh. Whether one views this portrayal as anti-Semitic or not, it highlights the perception of Jewish people in Europe at the time. Nonetheless,
Yes, and that was an anti-Semitic perception. That being, saying that Jews were in money lending because, as was mentioned, they couldn't own land and things. They couldn't be farmers. But we also found it to be the only trade that was open to us. And, Christian leaders would love to bring in Jews to help with the economy. And then when the economy was a little better, or if a king had a loan they didn't want to pay back, or a leader had a loan they didn't want to pay back, they just expel the Jews or kill them. So, the Merchant of Venice is anti-Semitic because it insists that that Shylock has some privileged position, which of course he doesn't.
Continued to excel. Eventually, they opened their own banks, and this gave them the power to conduct several banking transactions while continuing to charge interest on loans, a service which was crucial for both Christians and Jews. Number 9. Discrimination brought them closer together. Before the French Revolution of 1789, the Jewish were treated as outsiders in most of Europe. They were also the victims of many discriminatory rules. For example, instead of being taxed as individuals, they were taxed as a community. This, coupled with the fact that they were excluded from society, caused them to grow as a community. They were able to develop stronger connections with each other, which allowed them to build trust. They knew they could rely on each other more than they could rely on anyone else. It also caused them to take on more intellectual pursuits, causing them to contribute to medicine, mathematics, literature, and music. Their community ties continued to strengthen, and this, along with their belief that they should help and elevate each other, allowed them to continue building their wealth. Number 8.
The Talmud talks about, making sure that you have, set up ways to take care of the poor in your community. So there's been rules about encouraging us to be one community and to be, tight in that for a very long time. The Torah also teaches us that we should help the poor of our city before we help the poor Jews of another city. So the Torah doesn't just have particularist commands saying we should think about other Jews, but in fact has universal commands as well, encouraging us to take care of and support and be good to all of our neighbors.
Religious attitudes towards money. Like I mentioned before, their religion did not prohibit charging interest on loans. Christians of the time were repelled by careers which involved acquiring money in this way because they believed it was extremely sinful. This gave the Jews a huge advantage. Their religion also teaches good business practices, and they were adamant about adhering to certain principles as the Torah instructs them to. Therefore, they appear to be
The Torah does command certain things in business. It commands you to treat your workers well, pay them on time, pay them fairly, not abuse them or overwork them. In fact, the Jews were we were the first people to have a weekend of sorts. Shabbat, or the Sabbath, is the original day off. Before that, there weren't set days off every week. That's just not something that happened. So all of these things probably contribute to good Jewish business practices, sure.
Attractive business partners to others who believe that they will maintain this attitude of integrity and honesty. To add to this, a fundamental aspect of Judaism is stewardship. It teaches that the wealth on earth is for everyone to enjoy, and that it should continue to be cultivated and created. It's important to guard.
That's usually more, I'm used to this idea is certainly very much a part of Judaism. I'm used to it in the context of saying we should be good stewards of the earth and to make sure that human beings have a responsibility to preserve and protect the earth and tend it. It's interesting here it's being phrased for wealth. I generally think of it just as a worldly idea.
Money and to use wisdom when making financial decisions. Wealth is not only seen as a blessing, but a great responsibility as well. Poverty is not considered to be a quality of righteous people, and it is important for everyone to work hard in order to gain success. Becoming reliant on charity is a big no. And while they tithe and
if you have to be dependent on charity, that's okay. It's obviously not ideal. You should try and get yourself up on your feet. We have this idea of, ein kemach, ein Torah, and also ein Torah, ein kemach. Kemach literally being like flour, but in this case being sustenance, or parnasah, like salary. A living. Without a living, there is no Torah. There's no purpose to our existence here because we have to sustain ourselves. But just so, you can't be too concerned with worldly matters of wealth or things like that, because what we're really here to do is model a certain ethical and moral philosophy that is represented by Judaism.
Contribute to charitable organizations, they see it as important to not become the recipient of charity. Number 7, compassion. Jews believe that God requires 10% of their income and that
It's true, the Torah and the Parsha Kitavo in Deuteronomy instructs that a tenth of your harvest should be given as a tribute to charity. You're also there are many times when we're supposed to give charity throughout the year and at certain holidays. So we're supposed to give to charity, really as much as we can. But certainly that 10% thing does come from the Torah. And Maimonides did teach. This is a great video. Did teach about the levels of charity, of which the highest one is that one is essentially double blind, that one gives without any reward and one receives without knowing who gave it.
8 levels of charity.
That
This
helps
charity
promote
should
the
be given
dignity.
anonymously, in a manner which would not cause any embarrassment to the poor. It should also enable the less fortunate to help themselves. Judaism teaches that the community should be embraced and provided with any necessary help. Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 11 states, quote, "Open your hand to the poor and your neighbors in your land who are in need." With principles like these,
everybody.
the less fortunate in the Jewish community are not ostracized. Rather, they are embraced and assisted. They look after each other and share their wealth to benefit the community. Therefore, when those who were once poor begin to succeed, they help others who have less. This creates a cycle of success and prosperity. They're also very supportive of their own when they've started new businesses or have new ideas. Upliftment of others is considered second nature. Number 6, education. According to a Pew Research Center global demographic study, Jews are the best educated religious group in the world. Most are able to achieve an average of
Could be skewed
13.4
by
years
how
of
few of
schooling,
us there are.
while some other religious groups, such as Hindus and Muslims, receive less than half of that.
We also tend to live in countries, and many of us live in Western countries, where education is prioritized. So if you're a Jew growing up in the U.S., you're going to get 12 years of school, basically as a guarantee. There are fewer Jews who grow up in societies where public education isn't mandatory, or at least some form of, early and secondary education are mandatory. So that also skews that number. But, Israel, the U.S., where together a large majority of the world's Jews live, are both states that require young people to go through education. And so that alters the number versus societies that don't require education as a country, not just as a people group or religion.
6 years. Researchers believe that one of the main reasons for this is because Jews are located in countries where there are already high levels of education, such as the U.S. and Israel. More Jews are able to attain higher education, and this leads to better opportunities and higher salaries later on. Number 5. Generational values. In many non-Jewish families, children are simply taught that they need to get a good education so they can someday have a good job which pays the bills. At least, that's what I was taught. However, it's a little bit different in the Jewish community. Families have provided a solid financial education to their young for generations. Therefore, children are able to grow with an awareness of money. It's important.
This guy's closing in on a deal for a toy. But I can say I did not get an extensive financial education from my family. Any financial education I received, which wasn't a lot, was self-guided, maybe even here on YouTube, but was not was not a family sitting me down saying, "Hey, let's learn about finances now."
And its value. Traditions are passed along, and children are taught how to manage what they may someday inherit, and also how to continue building wealth. Older generations also try to model correct behaviors so that their children can learn from them. According to Jewish financial consultant Rivka Lebowitz, how we spend our money is an area where children see what we value most. If we value Jewish education, then we're paying for it. If we value going to Disney World,
Jewish
we're
education
paying for
is
that.
expensive.
Torah
A lot of
values
people
go
spend a
hand in
lot of
hand
money
with how
on
we deal with
private
money.
Jewish education.
Lebowitz emphasizes that children observe their parents' attitudes towards money. When they see that a fraction of their income is budgeted towards charity, it teaches them to adopt similar values. Children are taught that money is not only an aspiration, but it is a tool which can be used to achieve various means. Number 4, they are determined and persistent. The spiritual and practical teachings of Judaism help followers to keep persisting through challenges, pain, and tragedy. This is a major factor which has allowed them to thrive and survive throughout the generations. It is not new to anyone that they have been victims of persecution and unfairness for a long time. What I find particularly admirable is that they remained resilient throughout it all. When asked about this resilience, many Jewish
What are the
people will
choice?
emphasize that this has been a feature of their people since biblical times.
Yeah.
For example, the ancient Israelites faced many years of slavery, then moved to their own land. Later on, their temple was destroyed by the Romans and Babylonians. When they moved to Europe,
Flip
they were
those
exiled from
Babylonians first.
Spain, while Sephardic Jews were able to re-establish themselves elsewhere. They faced several hardships during medieval times, and we all know about the Holocaust and the awful atrocities that they faced during this time. However, they survived through it all and continue to remain focused and steadfast throughout. This resilient attitude also has positive consequences in the business world. What I mean is that after seeing your people endure so much hardship and still prospering regardless, one is less likely to give up on a business venture which is initially unsuccessful. With this kind of mentality, it's impossible to not do very well eventually. Number 3, networking. Judaism places a high value on interpersonal connection. Such connections lead to more opportunities and inevitably more wealth. According to Ben Sira, a Hellenistic Jewish scribe, a faithful friend is a firm friend, and he that findeth him hath found a treasure. Thus, it is ingrained in Jewish people that friendships can lead to greater success, provides professional opportunities, and the chance to develop connections with other people. According to Derim Online, the Jewish networks that built a new Jewish life in the Talmudic era and beyond included communication between people who literally could never have spoken to one another. The network extended beyond distance and, incredibly, beyond time.
Yeah, it's true that in the Talmud, you will get what appear to be almost like their conversations between rabbis who lived a long time apart. Of course, they're really writing in response to a rabbi who lived before, not, or their quote is being used to respond to someone. Obviously, we don't have a method of bending time to talk to people across all manners of dimensions or anything. That would be a whole new conspiracy theory I've never even heard of.
Restrictions. They add that, as Jews, we are networked. It is part of our heritage. Historically, Jewish networks have always been quite strong. A very long time ago, when Jewish communities were dispersed across long distances, transcultural and trans-territorial channels of communication still existed. Their similarities also united them. Their common religion, language, high rates of literacy, and mercantile connections. Trade, which was important to them, also helped to strengthen networks. This continued throughout medieval times when they were excluded from agriculture, craftsmanship, and land ownership. Number 2, effective wealth management. According to author Kolben Levy, there are 2 trials before the individual, the test of wealth and the test of poverty. Both are difficult, but the test of wealth is greater than the test of poverty. The key to prosperity is learning how to manage your wealth effectively, and Jewish people are quite meticulous when it comes to that. Firstly, they adhere to giving tzedakah, charity. Everyone, rich and poor, must give 10% of their earnings to the needy. Some may choose to place their cash and spare change in a tzedakah box and then donate it to a charity of their choice once it's full. Greed is scorned upon and discouraged. After all, wealth comes from God. It is impossible to take money with you after you've died. It is also a common principle to live within one's means. While other cultures hurt themselves financially while trying to keep up with the Joneses, Judaism promotes living within one's means. Budgeting is important, and this certainly makes life easier and less stressful. Although it is seldom discussed, Jewish people may tend to have extra expenses. For example, kosher food can be a bit pricey.
Very
In addition,
expensive.
Many Jewish people choose to send their kids to Jewish schools, which cost between $25,000 to $40,000 a year. It's all about priorities.
But that's
Number
where we
1,
choose to spend our money.
It's just part of who they are. The Tanakh portrays the first Jews as being very wealthy. Thus, a standard has been set which they can follow. There's no doubt that this has encouraged Jewish families to
Abraham
pursue
was
the
wealthy,
accumulation
sure.
of wealth and to strive towards having high-income careers. Other wealth accumulation strategies, like investing, are also viewed as important for success. Many faiths focus on the afterlife and how one receives one's rewards then. However, Judaism perceives wealth and success as gifts from God. I believe that each culture and religion has something.
Whoa, we're not doing that video. But, yes, I would say that
Jews have a
we
reputation.
do care very much about our families and making sure we can pay for the proper food and education, things like that. I don't know how much it's just part of who we are, but I will say that was an enjoyable video. I think they got a lot of stuff right. So that's great. Please join me next time. Please make sure to like and this video and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff. It helps with the algorithm. More people might see this video, and it will remind you. Can click the bell notification button to find out when we are next going to be going up. So, shalom. Have a great day.